Allons-y.
Anyway, come on. Allons-y.
Time has come, but the moment has been prepared for. That's to paraphrase the fourth Doctor as he faced his own impending demise. It's a shame that we know so far in advance that a Doctor is leaving, because it always means a sense of foreboding overrides everyone else. As for the fact that it is Stephen Moffat's final run, and a perfectly good episodes like Knock Knock and The Eaters of Light, even the ambitious Moss trilogy, run the risk of feeling a bit of whatever. It is a human curse to wish your life away, and a fan curse to wish away a quality series so that we might just get to the end. But the good news, after a series, I managed to find a little fault in. More than enough time, it's the finest episode I think we fans have seen in quite some time, and yes, that includes Heaven Sent. It needed to be after weeks of conjecture around the redemption of Missy, but it also offered both claustrophobia and scale, scientific intrigue, returning monsters from the 60s, and most shockingly of all, the apparent offering of a companion in a graphic and brutal manner so early on. Maybe it was the speed with which it happened, and the tiny whininess of a colony ship, with the Doctor's reaction to Bill's death, and the surety in which he seemed to assume she would eventually be fine, spoke to a long-building recklessness, and all that before we even get to the matter of the other returning frenemy. For the Doctor, the stakes have rarely been higher than they are in World and Enough Time. He's on the brink of regeneration. His companion has been converted into a Mondasian Cyberman, and his project to encourage Missy to take a different path in her life is likely to suffer a knock when she meets her former incarnation.
Hello, Missy. I'm the Master. I'm very worried about my future. Give us a kiss.
John Sim is back! I was really excited when the BBC and everyone announced that John Sim was coming back as the Master. At first I thought it was one of those internet jokes, but then the more news came out, the more I realized that he was really coming back. And it's been 7 years since we last saw John as the Master in The End of Time Part 1 and 2 back in 2009, I believe. I hope I got that right. Oh my god, I love John's version of the Master. It's out of everyone. No offense to Michelle, I love her version too. It's just, I was in so much tears of joy, actually, and when I saw the episode, The World Enough in Time, I was being a total fan girl, giggling, having tears of joy go down my face, like being so happy, as if I were at a concert or something, jumping up and down. It is worth wishing, even for a moment, that they had managed to keep John Sim's return a secret. A sure impossibility, but how much more delicious could the reveal have been if we hadn't known what was coming? As it was, and despite a hugely effective prosthetic, I called from his first appearance that Mr. Razor was the Sim Master in disguise because of how far along we were into the story. Who else was it gonna be? We still don't know who. We still don't know how, and if this Master knew he will be coming up against Team TARDIS and his future self. But we presumed that he needed to disguise himself as Mr. Razor, since Bill would have recognized him as former Prime Minister Harold Saxon. But it was a little nice line in fan service for him to ask Missy, "Do you still like disguises?" Here, Sim's master is significantly dialed down. More malevolent menace than the ADHD version that battled David Tennant back in the day, and far less annoying for it. Details of the master's timeline and regeneration history are among the questions you're not meant to ask in Doctor Who, but if we're to assume this happened to him after the events of the end of time, there are further mind-bending, continually implications. I don't really mind, though, because it's in his best tradition. Moffat then explains things away in one line. I'm the master, and I'm worried about my future. The prospect of turning good is apparently too severe a threat not to echo across his timeline, which makes me more convinced that in the beginning at least, Missy's intentions were indeed pure. Yes, she treats Team TARDIS conventions with delightful disdain, but after weeks of welcome, understated sobriety, Michelle Gomez is back on her campus, most ridiculous, best, Old Enough End Time, is a very strong episode that manages to weave an agreeable, timey-wimey spaceship yarn into the climax of this season's gently brewing Missy's story, complete with Cybermen. The big reveal doesn't disappoint either, even though it's immediately obvious to me that Mr. Razor is inhabited by the Master. You can, since we first meet that character, you can obviously tell that it was John Sim in disguise. I was pointing out to the screen every time Mr. Razor appeared on screen. I was like, that's totally John Sim. That's totally the Master. I could totally tell that's the worst disguise ever. That's totally obvious to be. It was totally John Sim. Like, the opening entries of most of the new Doctor Who's two partners, World Enough and Time, it has really most of the good stuff in reserve for next week's episode. And we only get the smallest taste of John Sim's Master out of his preposterous disguise and precious little sense of his interactions with Michelle Gomez's Missy. There's just the one short scene with the Mondasian Cybermen, complete with the cloth face and eerily sing-song voice that makes their original appearance in the 1966 The 10th Planet so uniquely chilling. And while the fact that said Cyberman is Bill, which means it packs a wallop, is still not much more than a teaser for the Dr. Balls, but all that counts as downright extensive compared with the nearly non-existence follow-up to the Doctor's apparent regeneration in the pre-credits sequence, with only the trailer for the next weeks, offering any hint that the show will get back to that all-important plot point. This is Doctor Who, a promissory note, with the obvious comparison point being the last time Peter Capaldi's Doctor found himself entangled with the Master and the Cybermen in the 2014 Stout Water. I've said it before, but my main thing about modern Who, Doctor Who, is that it has never gotten the Cybermen right. For the second most iconic monster in these worlds, their stories have either not quite landed, or they have been upstaged by the Daleks, or Missy, or whoever. In fact, I'm not even sure the Cybermen have probably worked since the black and white days of the 60s. So it's a little surprised that this week the spookiest, most menacing damn effect the Cybermen have ever been, but in the form of the original 60s cloth-faced Mondasian Cybermen, there's body horror chill. Seeing these upgraded people as the most immediately post-human made all the worse because that's the fate of that befalls Bill Potts. It becomes the stuff of Doctor Who legend that Peter Capaldi has been calling for their return. So it's such a great touch for Moffat to grant his actors' wish for the final belong. The episode feels like a mashup of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, The Singing Detective, and 12 Monkeys in Space. It seems particularly influenced by the dystopian landscapes of Terry Gilliam's films. I love that it explores the human condition through the eyes of Bill as the Doctor, Missy, and Nardole are more than 1,000 floors away on a 400-mile-long, 100-mile-wide tin can spaceship that is very slowly reversing out of a black hole. 10 minutes at the top of the ship can be measured in years for Bill, who is stuck below deck on a deranged hospital ward that looks out onto a desolate, fume-filled urban scene. It's a battle of time, the Doctor says. So what of the fate of heartless mechanic Bill, who is now a Mondasian Cyberman after waiting in vain for the Doctor to find her? Bill! It's a coincidence that Bill is shot by a trigger-happy alien who could be the brother of a blue-skinned Darren from Oxygen. Is there a significant link here, or were there the producers keen for the makeup department to use up the last of the blue paint? But then, Oxygen is notable for another reason. The Doctor first lost his sight during his time on Chasm Ford. Are we now seeing the result of that physical damage with the Time Lord's despair or his imminent regeneration? There are so many exits expected this year that it's hard to know where to begin. Showrunner Stephen Moffat, Peter Capaldi, and Michelle Gomez are on their way out. So should the fresh-faced, lippy in a good way Bill, known simply as Exposition to the ever-brilliant Missy, at this stage, left too. There hasn't been anything to suggest that Bill, or indeed Nardole, will be toast. But it would be bold if Bill is ditched after just one season. A factory settings level reboot for Doctor Who's new showrunner, Chibnall, perhaps. First thing I've noticed, regeneration had previously been treated as a largely heroic process. Russell T Davies' innovation was to establish the standing of regeneration, the beams of light cascading from the Time Lord's arm and neck, signaling a glorious rebirth rather than a tragic death. None of that for Capaldi's 12. Standing alone in a snowy Nowheresville, because it will be Christmas when he finally goes, a somber doctor is not happy to be changing. He looks broken, devastated even. His hair has lost something of its sass, and perhaps crucially, he's alone. The end seems like a good place to start. Only that isn't quite possible because of this cliffhanger can't play out until the Christmas special. And then there are even so many feelings to process. I'm not even sure any of us have the emotional energy. Yes, that was David Bradley as the first Doctor, replacing William Hartnell, and perhaps the best forgotten portrayal of Richard Hartnell in the 1980s 20th special of the Five Doctors. In any other circumstances, recasting a deceased actor in a role would feel cheap. Indeed, one Bradley was simply so good in the 50th anniversary biopic, An Adventure in Space and Time, both as a struggling Hartnell and a reimagining of Hartnell's portrayal. But then we must applaud it. As for that showdown, how else was it going to end? Two masters stabbing themselves in the back and front with the perfect solution to evil coming up against itself, writing both of them out as much as ever as possible with Time Lords. In a few short minutes, did Missy, eventual redemption ring true? Did the apparent and inherent goodness of the female version have bigger things to say about male and female states? More of a problem is in the face of Bill Potts, with so much to go through, even in the space of an hour. Her exit, if that's what it was, felt sparse. As much as she stands as a positive piece of LGBT representations, her relationship with Potter Heather had never felt major enough to be her final payoff. No announcement has been made about the character's future, and it has been reported only this week that Pearl Mackie has had meetings with upcoming showrunner Chris Chibnall, and if this was truly the end of a character who was almost unanimously well received, then probably even accident of scheduling as much as anything else, Mackie will almost certainly be fine in her future career. And of course, Will Matt Lucas, who never really needed a role in Doctor Who, but Nardo's fate is left similarly vague, though we assume he's destined to spend the rest of eternity in the foster care of the children of Mad Dacian spaceship, battling off the relentless flirting of gun-toting Nanny Hazran. The obvious point here is how can the first Doctor be back? Moffat would hardly let his Doctor go without something hugely epic, but will younger fans be able to understand or follow whatever's happening? And oh yes! Where's Planet 14? The Master and Missy clearly don't know who their best frenemy as well as they thought they did. As far as we know, the Doctor has never drowned or felt the blade, for he has expired from old age, has been exiled to Earth by the Time Lords, poisoned by the metabolic crystals, fallen from Jodrell Bank Observatory, poisoned by spectrotaxamia, banged his head against the Tartar console, been shot by the Mafia, sacrificed himself to fight the Time War, expired again at the end of Time War, absorbed the energy of the Time Vortex to save Billy Piper, absorbed the cubicle radiation to save Bernard Cribbins, lived to die of old age, and now presumably is facing a reluctant regeneration at the hands of the Cybermen Death Ray? deeper into the vortex. As we reach the end, there's a fair amount of housekeeping to get through in the wider universe. 1. In an era of 2 masters, we're actually getting a third. Sir Derek Jacobi is confirmed to return as Priestess Master from 2007's Utopia in a new series of audio plays for Big Finish. The War Master series is available for pre-order on BigFinish.com right now. And along with him, David Tennant's 10th Doctor and Billy Piper's Rose Tyler are set to reunite in a new series for the audio adventure series coming in November to Big Finish. And in sadder news, BBC Worldwide has announced that the BBC Store, which has allowed viewers to stream and download from anti-censored archives, including Doctor Who and Torchwood, will close in November. Users have been offered a full refund. And similarly, the excellent Doctor Who experience in Cardiff will shutter its doors in November, but it will be going out of Blazing events. Details available on DoctorWhoExperience.com. We'll be back at Christmas, but after that, Capaldi and Moffat will be gone for good. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel down below, and also please follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And don't be afraid to send me an email, which is listed down below as well.